Hello again and welcome back to the PhatPhish Guitar Studio. I'm Dave, and in this video I want to look at some options for playing over the top of dominant family chords, like dominant 7 chords like this. Particularly sort of in a blues context, because dominant family chords work really well within like a bluesy sort of feel. But what I want to look at is sort of getting away from the obvious choices and opening up some avenues, maybe get a little bit more creative. Apologies if my voice is a little bit croaky. I've just been getting over a really bad cold, so I'm still a little bit of a sore throat and a little bit sniffly. But I will soldier on. I'm a professional. Okay, dominant family chords. If you know your chord harmony, you know that these occur on the 5th degree of the major scale, and they've got the formula 1, 3, 5, flat 7. So they're built on a major triad, but they've got the flat 7 that you would normally associate with a minor 7 chord. So it's completely distinct family in their own right, the dominant family chord. And they've got a very distinctive voice compared to like a major 7 chord or a minor 7 chord. The dominant 7 chord has a more dissonant feel. So if you look at the notes involved, there's an interval of a flat 5th between the 3rd degree and the flat 7th. Not a pleasant interval at all, but it's that diminished 5th interval that gives the sort of the tension and the distinctive feel that the dominant 7 chord has. So like we say, it comes from the 5th family of chords in the major scale. It's a Mixolydian chord, and so the obvious scale choice to play over the top of a dominant 7th chord is the corresponding Mixolydian mode. So if we've got an A dominant 7th chord here, the obvious scale choice to play over the top is the A Mixolydian mode. Now harmonically, that's perfect. It's the mode from which the chord is derived. So the notes that you're playing, you know, they're absolutely spot on. But it's not particularly bluesy. It's harmonically fine, but this is one of those really good examples of just because in terms of music theory it's right, it doesn't necessarily mean it's something that you want to do. There's ways you can break the rules. So I tend to approach teaching music theory as it's a set of guidelines. If you understand music theory, you can then understand the rules, and you can understand how and where you can break them to come up with more interesting sounds or styles or whatever. So like I say, Mixolydian mode is the right choice, but it doesn't sound particularly bluesy. What other choices have we got? Well, if we're playing in a blues context, page 1 of how to play in a blues context is to play the minor pentatonic. And that does work reasonably well over the top of a dominant 7th chord. So that's an option. Why does that work? Why does that sound good in a bluesy context? Well, it works, I guess, because one of the fundamental things in blues is this sort of duality of major and minor. So you've got what is fundamentally a major chord. It's a dominant family chord, but it's built on a major triad, so it's got a regular 3rd degree in it. Minor pentatonic is a minor type scale. It's got a minor 3rd, it's got a flat 3rd degree in it. So you're playing a minor type chord over the top of a chord that's built on a major triad. But don't forget, because it's a dominant family chord, you've got that flat 7th, which is common to the minor pentatonic as well. So you've got two scales that actually mesh together quite nicely. So in terms of playing blues, that's something you've probably done plenty of times before. You used a minor pentatonic scale. I mean, I know people have pretty much made careers out of just playing the minor pentatonic scale. Page 2 of how to play blues guitar, though, is to take that minor pentatonic scale, add in flat 5th degree. And that gives us a minor blues scale. The name, as it suggests, it works well in a blues context. It's got that flat fifth degree. It's a blue note, as they call it, and on its own, like I said, there's an interval of a diminished fifth in the dominant seventh chord, which is why it sounds a little unresolved. And there's that interval of a diminished fifth in the minor pentatonic scale, which sounds a little bit harsh. But when you put it into the context of the scale, it works very nicely and works particularly well over a dominant seventh chord. So you've got a very bluesy sounding scale and a slightly unresolved chord, and you've got a major minor duality, like the same way that you had with the minor pentatonic scale. Okay, but these are again obvious choices. What I want to look at is there something you can do to get a little bit more creative and get away from just playing, I'm playing blues, so I'm going to play minor pentatonics and minor blues scales. There isn't. There's probably a bit of sounds like initially a bit of a left field choice, but it works quite well, and that's a diminished arpeggio. Now in major scale and natural minor scale harmony, we have diminished triads, but when we extend those to include a seventh degree, we end up with a flat seventh, which only gives us a half diminished chord. A fully diminished chord, they occur in harmonic minor, for example. You would find those as the seventh chord in the harmonic minor scale, and they've got the formula 1, flat 3, flat 5, so diminished triad, but they've got a double flat seventh degree. Quite a strange sounding chord. A little dark perhaps, because you've got that diminished fifth in there. But I think it works quite well in the blues context if we think about playing it just as an arpeggio. Now, as always, if you're not familiar with any of the scales or arpeggios that I'm playing here, get yourself a copy of PhatPhish. If you haven't got it already, you can download it from the PhatPhish website. You can put it into scale mode or arpeggio mode, depending on what you're looking at. Dial in the scale or arpeggio of your choice and the root note, and it'll show you where the notes are on the fingerboard. So here I'm playing an A diminished arpeggio. It looks like this. So lots of different ways you can play it, but there's just a fingering to get you started. And that works really well, I think, over a dominant seventh chord. Yeah, so that's something you can experiment with. Now, a really interesting thing about the fully diminished chord and fully diminished arpeggio is the root note. So what I'm playing there is an A diminished arpeggio, which has got the notes A, C, E flat and G flat. So A diminished arpeggio. But if you look at the notes involved and look at the intervals between them, basically there's a minor third, or 3 semitones between each note in that arpeggio. So if you look at the notes of the chromatic scale, let's say we go, instead of starting on the A, we start on the C, and we'll pick out the notes of the C fully diminished arpeggio. You get C, E flat, G flat, and A. Likewise, if you start on the E flat there, or you start on the G flat, and build a fully diminished arpeggio, fully diminished chord, we end up with the same notes in each case. So it's a curious chord in that every note in a shape can be thought of as the root note. So just by knowing that one shape, you instantly know four versions of it. 4 chords or 4 arpeggios, because each note there could be seen as functioning as the root. So let's just look at the harmonic analysis a little bit. Why does this work so well over a dominant seventh chord? Well, You've got like that major minor tonality that I was talking about before, because you've got the major triad that's the basis of the dominant seventh chord, but you've got the flat third in the diminished triad. Fair enough. You've also got a flat fifth degree in the diminished arpeggio, so that's a bit like the flat fifth that you had in the blues scale that worked particularly well. And if you think about that, double flat seventh is enharmonically equivalent to a sixth degree, a major sixth. So a double flat seven is the same as the regular sixth degree, which you get in the Mixolydian mode. So if you look at, say, the A Mixolydian mode that we'll play, and then you look at the notes of the A minor blues scale, which we said, the Mixolydian mode is harmonically correct. It doesn't have a particularly bluesy sound, but it's right for the chord type. Play the A minor blues scale, which we said has got some outside notes, but it sounds good. Now, if you mash those two together and look at so you kind of combine a Mixolydian with a minor blues scale, and look at the notes involved, you've got the same notes of the fully diminished arpeggio occur in that combined scale. Now, scale combinations are a much bigger subject. I'll probably do another video on that at another time. But just kind of to introduce the concept that you can take two scales and kind of like overlay them. So you could play like a hybrid or a combination of minor blues scale and Mixolydian mode. And what you're doing when you're playing that diminished seventh arpeggio, fully diminished arpeggio contains notes from that hybrid, that combination scale, and that's why it works quite well. It's got a distinctive sound. It's got that diminished sound, which is really interesting, and it's a little bit different. It just gets you away from playing just the same old blues stuff. So it's something to experiment with. As always with these videos, I'm not going to just kind of give you licks to play so much as introduce you to an idea, point you towards resources like PhatPhish, where you can figure out where notes occur on the neck, help you get your fingers around different shapes, and then go away and experiment and try and incorporate these ideas into your playing, just to be a little bit more creative and come up with some new ideas and take yourself beyond just playing minor pentatonics or minor blues, or just slavishly sticking to the scale that happens to be theoretically right for the chord. It might not give you the best sound, so yeah, go out there and experiment. Right, I hope you found that useful. If you did, please click like down there. If you really enjoyed it, please click subscribe and you'll be notified of any other videos that I upload onto the channel. If you've got a question, you could leave it in the comments section, but to be honest, I don't always see those. You're welcome to comment, but if there's something specifically you want to ask me about music theory, guitar playing, guitar equipment, anything like that, suggestion for a future video, it's probably better to go here, fill that form in, and that'll send your question direct to me, and I'll try and get around to addressing it in a future video. Okay, that's all for now. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.